A recent study showed that 51% of people making over $100,000 live paycheck to paycheck. When we think of living paycheck to paycheck, we might think that that applies to those of us who work low-paying jobs, which very well may be the case. But the reality is, living paycheck to paycheck is simply if our outgoing expenses are equal to or maybe even exceed our incoming salary. We may think that if we're high earners and even earning well into our six figures, we will no longer be living paycheck to paycheck. That simply isn't always the case. And certainly $100,000 today does not hold the same value as it did 10 years ago, or maybe even 5 years ago. But a 100K salary puts you at roughly the top 10 to 15% of earners in the United States. Even with a six-figure salary, living paycheck to paycheck can be a result of factors beyond our control, such as inflation and shrinkflation. As far as the actions and decisions that we can control, today I'll be sharing 5 reasons why we may be living paycheck to paycheck even if we have a six-figure salary. Hi everyone, my name is Carly. Over the last 3.5 years, I've built a multiple six-figure net worth. On this channel, I share videos on personal finance, modeling, and lifestyle. So if you're interested in any of those videos, please like and subscribe so you don't miss any of my future content. Lifestyle inflation is the first reason why we may be living paycheck to paycheck even though we are high earners. When we earn more, we are naturally driven toward a higher standard of living. When we get a raise, we may think that we deserve to treat ourselves, which we certainly do, maybe just not changing our lifestyle habits. And changing lifestyle habits might look like moving into a more expensive home or buying an elevated version of our everyday staples. Maybe we start eating out more, maybe we spend more money buying things or just buying nicer things. All of these aspects might add up to hundreds, maybe even thousands of extra dollars that we are now spending on a monthly basis. And this is money that we weren't spending prior. As our income goes up, we're then unable to save proportionally more, or sometimes even as much as we were saving before. Lifestyle creep isn't always noticeable. Maybe it's like one thing here, one thing there. I think that's primarily because our income doesn't go from a 50K annual salary to a 100K annual salary. Rather, more realistically, it might look like a 50K salary to year 2, a 65K salary, and then 80K, and then 100K. So between a 50K salary and a 100K salary, there might be a difference of maybe 3 to 4 to 5 years. And we slowly start upgrading different parts of our lives to the point where what seemed like luxuries maybe 1 to 2 years ago now may seem like a regular way of life, and maybe even a necessity. This phenomenon is hedonic adaptation, the idea that regardless of any positive or negative event that happens in our lives, we eventually go back to a baseline level of happiness. When I learned about this, I realized that sometimes we think having something will make us happy. But hedonic adaptation means that we may be happy for a few days, maybe a few weeks, or in rare cases, a few months after we've acquired this shiny new thing. But our happiness level always eventually goes back down to a baseline. I always try to be very aware of that when I raise my standard of living. I think it's a great experience when I want to add luxuries into my lifestyle, but it's not so easy when I want to downgrade and remove these luxuries after I've gotten used to them. If we don't know where our money is going, then we don't know in which areas we're losing money. If we have a higher salary, sometimes this might create a false sense of security, which leads us to believe that we have more disposable income than we actually do. The reality is, if we have a six-figure salary, say we're earning $100,000 in California, assuming we have no pre-tax deductions after state, federal, Social Security, and Medicare taxes have been taken out of our paychecks, our take-home annual pay ends up being around $75,000. And this is a rough ballpark estimate. Most people might also contribute to their 401k, particularly if they get a company match. So that lowers the taxable income, but that also lowers the take-home pay. On top of that, we want to make sure that we're contributing to an emergency fund if that's not yet set up. And we also want to make sure we're contributing to a Roth IRA and investing into retail investment accounts if we're able. So all that to say, a salary of $100,000 is not $100,000 that we fully get to spend. Taxes and responsibilities take a huge chunk out of our incomes. Debt is the next reason why we may be living paycheck to paycheck. Many high earners struggle with debt due to the fact that many lucrative positions require extensive higher education, sometimes even multiple degrees. At the very least, they often require an undergrad degree, and the average undergrad student loan debt is $37,000, which is quite substantial. Other high-earning professions like lawyers and doctors have salaries well into six figures for their first jobs from getting their degrees. But also, the average doctor and lawyer debt is between $100,000 to $200,000. And this easily takes decades to pay off. Aside from educational debt, when we start making six figures, we might also come to the point in life where we take on a mortgage, maybe a car loan. Sometimes we even have credit card debt on top of student loans as well. If we're only paying off the interest on these loans without touching the principal, it's so easy to get caught in a cycle of making minimum payments without reducing the debt itself. And this definitely contributes to a cycle of living paycheck to paycheck. Another major reason why we may be living paycheck to paycheck is due to large overhead costs. I count overhead costs as any fixed expenses we are obligated to pay on a monthly basis. This includes rent, utility bills, subscriptions, even debt repayments. If we aren't able to keep our overhead expenses as low as possible, a good chunk of our take-home pay goes toward simply existing. And this somewhat ties into my earlier point on lifestyle inflation. Keeping our overhead expenses low allows for greater financial flexibility. Maybe most months we can save more money because of our low overhead expenses, but on another specific month we can choose to allocate funds toward events happening that particular month. Overall, we will probably still save more money, but we have that flexibility because not all of our money is going toward our overhead costs. I'm on social media, we're on social media, and social influences can be a huge reason why we are living paycheck to paycheck. I feel like I'm constantly getting marketed things to buy on social media these days. I guess that makes sense because that's the whole business structure of social media, but I really have to practice discernment when I come across these ads. Whenever we get influenced by social media, we may be thinking that these are one-off purchases. But the reality is one-off purchases really add up. I think for me personally, I do find that I get influenced and I feel like a little inclination to buy. If you're frequently influenced by social media or peers to make these purchases, it could be worth setting a specific budget to monitor and control your spending in this area. I think when we set limits on purchases, it ensures that we're investing in items that actually benefit us and helps us be mindful with that purchase. If you have a six-figure salary, but you're still feeling financially stretched, it could be due to lifestyle inflation, lack of proper budgeting, or not paying off debt aggressively. Large overhead costs can also affect our ability to save, as well as buying things due to social influences. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. It really helps out this channel a lot. Also, if you're on your personal finance journey, confidence is a huge part of being able to make solid financial decisions. Check out this video on how to build your financial confidence for long-term wealth.